Kent Hovind is back. He already has a YouTube channel and has been busy uploading all of his old videos, in the certain knowledge that there are new sheep to shear. He has served the time for his crime, and we should allow him that, except of course that he still denies his crime, and it is obvious that self-reflection is one pastime he did not engage in during his incarceration. Humility is not a word in Hovind's lexicon, and his ego has only been inflated by his self-imagined persecution. At first I thought I would let this ignoble occasion pass without comment, but I then realised that, though I am an old git for whom time's passage is ever accelerating, and for whom conman Kent being caught and convicted for not rendering unto Caesar seems like it was only yesterday, there will be some fresh-faced youths now tapping their fingers on their NetWeb tablet phones who had recent memories of breastfeeding when King Con Kent was imprisoned. It has in fact been 9 years since the Florida fabulist discovered that paying taxes is not optional, and that claiming that the many millions you have taken in from punters actually belongs to God, when it is clearly you and your family who are trousering the funds, will not wash with anyone but the most gullible of goons. Therefore, for those who are not familiar with the slickest snake oil salesman in the creationist business, I thought a very brief reintroduction necessary. The rule when listening to Kent Hovind is simple. Assume that almost invariably every word out of his mouth is a lie. This simple rule is important for 2 reasons. Firstly, it prevents the Bible-believing creationist Christian from falling into the "he believes what I believe, so I must believe what he believes" trap. And secondly, because almost invariably every word out of his mouth is a lie. Kent Hovind's modus operandi is to smile vapidly, talk fast, sling as much shit as is humanly possible, and overwhelm his opponents, who, while busy trying to clean one of his turds off the floor, will find themselves buried under a dozen more. Of course, I must back up this assertion. Not difficult, as Hovind could have an entire internet dedicated solely to disinfecting his dishonest dissembling. But I've chosen one item because it is breathtaking that anyone with a grade school education would continue to take this man seriously after listening to this interchange. In the summer of 2000, before George Bush declared war on an abstract verb, Kent Hovind debated Hugh Ross on the John Ankerberg Show. Hugh Ross has a real PhD in astrophysics and is an old-age creationist. I personally find it hard to imagine how he combines what he knows with what he believes, but this video is not about Hugh Ross. The debate in question is a long one, but I wanted to concentrate on one uninterrupted section. Here the discussion has moved on to the Genesis account of the 3rd day of creation.
This is what happened on day 3. God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. There was evening, there was morning, the 3rd day. We have the receding of the waters of the ocean, seas, and lakes taking place. We have the emergence of land above the seas taking place. Plants and trees come forth at that point. What else do you guys see taking place, and how long was this going on?
It took 1 day, 24 hours.
Well, I would see it as taking a much longer period of time.
Like how long?
Huh?
How long?
Oh, probably in the order of a few 100 million years. I mean, you're going to get these continents forming, right?
The continents we have today?
Yeah.
No. The continents today are a result of Noah's flood. The shapes of today's...
That's 6,000 miles of plate tectonics in just a few months of time.
That is assuming, of course, that today's continents are like they were in the days of Adam and Eve. See, what you've done is you've taken some scriptures that clearly apply to the flood, the worldwide flood in the days of Noah.
Do you believe that tectonics is operable in the Earth?
I was just on the San Andreas Fault last week. Yeah, it's moving.
Okay.
Sure. That's a result of the flood 4,400 years ago. The plates are still moving. The fountains of the deep broke open. The water came to the surface. They're still settling and shifting. I've climbed 40 volcanoes and taught earth science for years. Yes, sir.
But if you squish that much tectonics in that brief of a period of time...
How much tectonics? What are you trying to do? You're trying to put Africa and South America together? Is that what you're judging this by?
Either that or just produce the mountains that are necessary for your flood
No.
interpretation.
In order to make Africa and South America fit for the Pangea theory they put in the textbooks, they shrank Africa 35 to 40%.
They shrank Africa by 35 to 40%. Now, I've searched for this quote without success and cannot therefore state whether Hovind read this somewhere, perhaps in his copy of Continental Drift Conspiracy Theories for Creationist Kids, or simply pulled it out of his arse. NASA has been accused by the nuts of everything from faking the moon landings to aiming asteroids at the Earth, but I think Hovind is the only one, to my knowledge, who is claiming that they shrank Africa. In fact, it was Abraham Ortelius who is first recorded as theorizing on continental drift, as it was once known. In his Thesaurus Geographicus, published in 1611, he discussed the issue of Atlantis, as described by Plato in his Timaeus, in which Plato states that in the Atlantic, beyond the Pillars of Hercules, was the huge island of Atlantis, bigger than Libya and Asia put together. Ortelius instead offers his own opinion that America had been torn away from Africa and Europe by earthquakes and floods, and that the evidence was still there for all to see by comparing the coastlines of the continents. Ortelius knew a little of what he spoke, as he had accompanied Mercator on his voyages, and it would seem that it was this relationship which encouraged Ortelius himself to become a map maker, and at the encouragement of Mercator to produce the first modern atlas. Atlas being the word Mercator had coined for a collection of maps. As we know, paleontology and geology took off in the late 18th and early 19th centuries. Cuvier, Lyell, Agassiz, Humboldt, Owen, and of course Darwin contributed to the store of human knowledge. In 1858, Antonio Snider Pellegrini published The Creation and Its Mysteries Unveiled, in which he discussed at length the finding of common fossils across the continents, and the fact that while this were true for older fossils, it was not so for those buried more recently. And he added to this the fact that rock strata could be seen to match each other across the Atlantic Ocean. This was enough to convince Pellegrini that until geologically recently, the continents were one. It would be just 100 years ago that Alfred Wegener proposed his continental drift theory. This was not well received, mainly because Wegener presented no theory to explain how the continents were meant to sail around the globe through an oceanic crust which appeared to be quite resistant to any such thing. He was fairly roundly dismissed by his peers, who even argued against his claim of a fit between Africa and South America because of a misapprehension that Wegener was trying to match the continents along their current coastlines, whereas he was actually matching them at the continental shelves. Oddly though, not one single criticism of Wegener suggested that he had shrunk Africa by 35 to 40% to make it fit.
Pangea theory is just pure baloney. Plus, if you look...
Have you checked that out with geophysicists?
Well, just let me finish.
No,
if you
hold
take
it.
the water...
This is important.
Well,
if you're going to make these statements, the very least you got to do
always check it out.
is go to the geophysicists and say, give me your feedback.
Kudos to Hugh Ross for picking Kent up here.
Have you talked to them?
I taught earth science for 15 years. Get any high school textbook, which is what I taught. Measure the size of the continents they show for Pangea. Get a ratio, and then go measure it on a real globe. And you'll say, wow, how did they do that?
And zero kudos for the King Kong for sliming his way out of a reply. Has he ever spoken to someone educated on the subject? He didn't say. I suspect not, because then he would educate himself, and Kent already has all the answers he wants. Unfortunately, it would appear that Hugh was not equipped to fling this particular turd back in Hovind's face. It doesn't take much. Just look at any photograph of the Earth, or get yourself a globe from Amazon. You don't even have to buy one. Just look at the images of the globes for sale. Better still, get yourself some stress ball globes. They could come in handy should you ever have to debate this point with a creationist.
Plus, all of Mexico, all of Central America is gone. They take them out.
So sadly, Hugh Ross lets this turd float by unchallenged, because Hovind immediately follows it up with another floater. Mexico and Central America are gone. 2 words, Kent. Plate tectonics. But I'm probably getting too deep for your sheep now.
The shapes of the continents is a pure coincidence based on the water level.
This one I do love. What does it even mean? The shape of the continents is a coincidence based on the water level.
If you take the water out of the oceans, you will notice there is dirt underneath.
Well, actually no. As early as the 1870s, the Challenger expedition provided evidence on its 3-year surveying journey that silt from rivers is only deposited on the continental shelves, providing evidence that the ocean crust is a separate feature from the continental crust and that the two do not interchange.
These continents are not floating around like lily pads in a bathtub. They're connected. It's just the low places happen to be full of water.
Not quite, Kent. As early as the 1950s, ideas began to coalesce that would lead to the theory of plate tectonics. Paleomagnetism revealed that the sea floor exhibited alternating polarity in a predictable fashion. At the same time, the magnetic signature of strata on land provided evidence that subduction was occurring. The Challenger expedition had discovered the mid-Atlantic ridge decades earlier whilst surveying a route for the transatlantic telegraph cable, and the final piece of the jigsaw fell into place thanks in part to the Cold War. The exponential increase in seismographs, many placed to monitor nuclear weapons testing, resulted in a global map of earthquake activity, and this brought the tectonic plates of the Earth into sharp focus. Research since into seafloor spreading and subduction zones has provided a clear understanding of the actions involved. We are now spoilt with global monitoring stations and satellite imagery such that we can, from our desktop, look at hotspots under the Earth's crust. One such hotspot we know as Hawaii. Viewing this image, we can see how the hotspot has been moving under the ocean crust, or the ocean crust has been moving over the hotspot for a very long time. All of this knowledge shapes bullshit into Kent Hovind's face.
The opposite sides of most rivers are parallel with each other. That doesn't mean they broke apart millions of years ago. It was just a low place full of water,
Well, that's
all.
you stating it. I mean, again, check with the community of geophysicists and get their feedback.
About what?
About your plate tectonics theory. Is there
I
any
agree.
scientific support for your plate tectonics theory?
I agree the continents are moving a little bit.
A little bit.
That doesn't prove they're moving about as fast as your fingernails grow. Every professor of that subject that I know of would say about as fast as your fingernails grow. Obviously, that doesn't prove they've always been moving at that rate. And just because South America and Africa are X number of miles apart, you're just judging by the water level.
Take
the water out and they're touching.
Come in.
The currently accepted rate at which the Americas are moving away from Europe and Africa is 25 millimeters per year, so close enough. But unfortunately for Kent, the Hawaiian Emperor Seamount chain is over 5,800 kilometers, or 3,600 miles, long, and it is in the Pacific Ocean where the Pacific Plate is moving at 56 to 102 millimeters per year. Perhaps Kent would like to explain how that works in an upcoming video, but I would not hold my breath. And just in case you think I'm wasting my efforts here on a 15-year-old video, here is one posted on the 23rd of July 2015.
About kangaroos traveling to Australia. How did they get there? I covered that on video 6, the Hovind theory. I don't think the continents have moved much. I mean, they're moving a little bit with the continental drift. I understand that, earthquakes, but I don't think they were ever all together as one continent. You know, atheists have often said, or one guy asked in a seminar, Brother Hovind, do you think, the continents were ever connected? I say, well, they're still connected right now. They're always connected, It's just the low places are full of water. Hello, it's not like lily pads floating around in a bathtub. Of course they're connected. Drain the water out of the oceans, and I don't know where you'd put it, but find a place to put it, and our whole Earth is connected. So yes, the continents may be moving some, but that doesn't mean they were, Africa and South America fit. So what? My house and the neighbor's house would fit too if you took the street out of the way. So it doesn't prove they used to be connected. It's just that the shape is pure coincidence. Anyway, as far as kangaroos getting to Australia.
Enough said, I think. Thank you, as always, for watching.